Aaron, I'm an elder here with City Church, and my information's on the back if you ever have some questions. One of the many leaders here, and we have staff and elders and many ministry team leaders that are happy to talk with you at any point. We're excited tonight to incorporate into our time of worship an opportunity for our pulpit committee, a few members of our pulpit committee to share a little bit and to have some question and answer time. So this is part of what God is doing in our midst as City Church. And so I'd love to ask John and Eric Quorum, John Hansen, Eric Quorum, and Gretchen Lawson if you come up. And they're going to share for a little bit, and we'll close the time with a brief time of prayer. And this is part of just an opportunity for us to hear what's happening as well as ways we can continue to support this community. Just a quick reminder that if you're visiting, we're in the midst of searching for a pastor, for our head pastor. And so this committee was formed in October, and there are 9 members. And so they've been meeting frequently. And so they're going to give an update on where we are in that process and what we can expect in the coming month, as well as the coming months and longer term. Just go ahead.
There we go. Okay. Hi, everyone. Thanks, Aaron. That was a lot of the content of what I was going to say to introduce us. So that was taken care of. But we basically, as a pulpit committee, the 9 of us, we started meeting in November. And one of the main things that we've been doing is trying to figure out what this process is going to look like. As we mentioned before, none of us have been through this before. And there's some guidelines that are put out by the denomination, but there's not really specific, this is exactly what it looks like. So we've been trying to figure out for ourselves and also for the congregation, what is this process? And you should have a document in your in your bulletin, the worship guide. It looks pretty similar to that one, but it's much more legible. So the purpose of this document is, there's really 2 purposes. One is to just give all of us a sense of what are the steps that are happening, what is an overview of this process. And it's also what we're going to use to help keep the congregation updated on where we are in the process. So we're going to continually refer back to this and say, currently we're on step 2, but we're moving forward to that. So we're just going to walk through these steps, and then also share about some ways you can pray for us, and then at the end we'll take some questions about it.
Hey there, I'm Eric. I'm just going to read through these so you can read along with me. I'm going to read 1 through 4. First step is form the pulpit committee, and that's been taken care of. This congregation nominates and then votes on 9 members for the pulpit committee. Nominations were collected throughout the month of October, and the committee was elected at the beginning of November. Step 2, gather information. This is where we are now. Understand the process of nominating the next pastor of CCEN. That's what we've been doing from the time we formed until this point. We've really been kind of, as John said, gathering information, really understanding the overarching process. Gather information from the members of City Church pertaining to the community, the church, and our next pastor. We will conduct listening sessions and a congregational survey. So that's what we're entering into right now. So the listening sessions, stay tuned, you'll be getting an email. We'll be doing listening sessions in all of the neighborhood groups. And so you'll have a chance, this is a chance for the church to really, the congregation to really enter into where we're headed and really give us feedback. So this is your chance to really speak up. That's what we'll be doing next. Step 3, create community, church, and desired pastor profiles. Based on information gathered from the congregation, the session, and other sources, we will create the main documents that will direct our search. The desired pastor profile will describe the qualifications and characteristics we are seeking in our next pastor. The community profile and church profile will be designed to describe CCEN and East Nashville to interested candidates. When completed, these documents will be made public. And then finally, step 4, post the position. Post the desired pastor profile describing the position, gather pastor recommendations, and in parentheses you can see that the congregation is encouraged to recommend names for the pastor recommendation.
I'm going to go through steps 5 through 8, so you can just read along with me. Step 5 is collect and evaluate applications. And that's actively solicit and collect applications. Review applicant materials. conduct telephone interviews, and narrow the applicant pool down to a shorter list. Step 6, evaluate short list of candidates, personally interview top candidates, visit candidates at their churches, make reference calls, follow-up calls, and additional interviews, prayerfully decide on candidates you recommend to the congregation. Step 7, present candidate to the congregation. The pulpit committee invites the recommended candidate to visit our community and congregation. There will be opportunities for the congregation to interact with the candidate and his family. Step 8, election and installation of a new pastor. A congregational meeting will be called where members vote to elect the pastor. After the candidate is notified and is approved by the presbytery, the candidate is then installed. The pulpit committee is then dismissed. And just a note, the evaluation that happens in step 5 and 6 will be informed by the information that we gather in step 2, the current step that we're in, and the documents created in step 3. So those are the steps as best as we have gotten it together to this point. I want to share with you just a couple of ways that you can be praying for us. This is an awesome, awesome way for you to walk with us, and we really need and covet your prayers. So the first one is if you could be praying for wisdom and discernment, that we as a committee would really be able to hear God's voice as we are in this process, in every step of this process. The second one is that you could pray for rest and refreshing. We desperately need prayer for this, as we are trying to balance our life commitments along with being on this committee, and really committed to this committee. And then the third one is for unity of the church. In particular, in this step right now, as we're gathering information, and we're gathering information from the congregation, we would love prayer that we would be unified, not just as a committee, but as a body, as we gather information, as we're listening to you, and as we're moving through these steps. So please, please pray for us. Thanks.
Great. So I know that was a good deal of information, but we're going to open it up now for a time of Q&A. And we sort of acknowledge ahead of time that there are some details and a lot of things that we don't know the answer to, so that may be an answer to some of the questions. We don't know right now, but that's a really good question. Yeah, we're open for Q&A right now. Jesse.
I was wondering what goes into a community and church profile, and how that information gets out there.
Okay, Jesse's question is, what goes into a community and church profile, and how that information goes out there? It's distributed, is that what that is? These are documents that there's some variety in how they can look. So a lot of that information that we use or decide what is valuable to say about our community East Nashville, or our church, is something that will come from the stage that we're currently in. So I gather from listening to the congregation, responding to questions that we send out, and also, so in the community profiles, it can be a 1 or 2 page document that describes what East Nashville is like. And that's largely for people applying to the position to know, East Nashville is a big part of our identity, right? To know what that is. And the same thing with our church, which is something that we're eager to find out. Eager to find out information about our congregation, about our church, and share that with all of you when we do that in step 4. Yes, those documents will be published and will be spread, however we can through personal networks, through the congregation, and will be posted on the website as well. Yeah.
Will the congregation have a chance to hear the candidate actually give a message when any decision is made? Or I read that there's a time for interaction, but that's
Yeah. So the question is, will the congregation have a chance to hear the candidate preach? Because step 7 talks about visiting the congregation, but doesn't give that detail. But yes, certainly he will preach, but there's more to it than just a message. So the congregation will get to interact with the pastor, the recommended pastor. Ken?
In step 2, it has listening sessions listed there. Are there any of those right now, or is that still something that we're trying to line
Could you repeat that?
up? For understanding, it said something about listening sessions in step 2, about trying to hear the congregation, hear out the congregation about the community, the needs of the church, et cetera, et cetera. Are those, how will those be scheduled? Or at some point, we all just schedule them and just let us know? Or?
Right, there's going to be some emails going out to your neighborhood group leaders this week, so you'll be getting an email, and you will have a specific neighborhood group time where it'll be deemed a listening session, and 2 or 3 of us will be coming to your neighborhood group. The entire neighborhood group will be about throwing out 4 questions and then getting responses from y'all. We'll be recording it all, writing it down. All the input that you give us will be gathered by us. If you can't make that meeting, there will be an additional catch-all kind of meeting on a Sunday. So we're trying to make as many opportunities as possible for people in case they can't make the one that's on their designated neighborhood group night.
But we wanted to do it in neighborhood group, to make it easier on schedules for people who are already involved in a neighborhood group. That way you're not coming to something extra, you're already in your neighborhood group, and we're coming to you to really listen to you and hear what you have to say. Does that answer your question? Right.
And we're also taking written submissions, so if you can't attend neighborhood group, you can't attend the open session, you can also send us an email with your thoughts. So a detailed email is coming out this week, so we're kind of pushing that off, but there'll be plenty more details on the specific questions that we are sending out to come out this week. Matt?
Hey, just curious, are you guys, how often do you guys meet? And is there a specific timeline for any of these phases? Do you guys just kind of let it happen naturally, or are you guys like, we'd love to have a pastor by June 6th?
Okay, so Matt's question was, how often are we meeting as a pulpit committee? And also, do we have any specific timeline on these steps? Are we going to have a pastor by June 6th? June 23rd is my birthday, so that's a Thursday. Actually, we're currently in step 2, and our goal is to post the position at the end of March. Beyond that, we don't have any specific scheduling timelines. Our goals are really more about discovering the characteristics and qualities that describe a pastor who would be the best fit for our congregation, and then at that point, understanding that timeline. But also the goal of this document is to keep the congregation updated on where we are, so we can let you know when we're moving on to those next steps that don't have a specific timeline. Oh yeah, sorry. This month we met 3 times. That's going to be pretty standard. This next month of February we're devoting to listening sessions, which are keeping us fairly busy. So we're going to meet once as an entire pulpit committee, but we're each going to a neighborhood group, 1 or 2 neighborhood groups each week.
We meet for 3 hours, so we're meeting a good amount of hours every week.
Other questions? Yeah, Michael?
Yeah, I know there have been some names that people have submitted already. If people have people submit names in the networks, who do those go to next year? You know what you do?
So Michael's question is, people have names to submit. Who should they submit them to? And so basically at step 4, so when we post the position at the end of March, we're going to specifically ask the congregation for recommendations. So that's, and you can send them at that point to any of us on the pulpit committee. But if the person's name is really just burning in your pocket or your mind or whatever, you can send them to us now. We just won't be contacting that person, or we don't really know the qualifications yet. So, but we will add them to our list and be glad to take them. Time for one more question. Okay.
John, could you just mention who else is on the committee for everyone's benefit?
Sure. If you're on the public committee, can you stand up if you're in this room? All right, so, Rick Punkashar, Catherine and Suniva and Josh and Catherine Falk. And then Mark Miller is also on the committee. Not here.
Great, thank you. And then I'd love